Clara Hathaway was the only daughter of a powerful landowner, Samuel Hathaway. She was so beautiful that stories of her charm spread across counties. Along with beauty, she was intelligent and talented, but her father's wealth and admiration made her prideful. Her arrogance grew so much that she saw no man as worthy of her. Many suitors came asking for her hand, but she turned them all away, believing none matched her status. As the years passed, whispers of her pride spread through town. People talked, and Samuel worried about the family's reputation. So he devised a bold plan with his old friend, a neighboring land baron named Robert McAllister. They announced that on Clara's upcoming birthday, she would marry the first man to step through the town's gates at dawn, whoever he may be. The day arrived. As the sun rose, the townsfolk watched eagerly. The first man to enter wasn't a nobleman or a wealthy rancher. It was a drifter. He was young, ruggedly handsome, and had a confident, carefree air about him, but his clothes were ragged. The town was stunned. Samuel kept his word and, without ceremony, married Clara to the drifter. Furious, she protested, cried, and raged, but her father remained firm. Handing the drifter 5 gold coins, he declared, "Take your wife and leave this town at once. If either of you returns, you will be punished." With no choice, Clara followed the drifter out of town, sobbing. But her new husband? He was unbothered, whistling a tune as they walked. He spoke kindly, trying to cheer her up, but she ignored him. After a long journey, they reached a small shack near a river. "This is home now," he said. "You'll have to gather firewood, cook whatever we find, and fetch water." Life was hard, but to her surprise, the drifter was never cruel. He treated her with warmth and patience. She resented her new life, but slowly, she learned to survive. Days passed, then weeks. One morning, he led her to a town and gave her a set of clay pots. "Sell these at the market," he told her. Clara, once the daughter of a wealthy man, now had to stand in the marketplace and trade like a commoner. She didn't know how to bargain and refused to sit on the dusty ground like other vendors. Soon, a young horseman passed by and asked for a price. Clara, still prideful, responded curtly. As he turned to leave, his horse reared up, knocking over her stall. Every single pot shattered. Shaken and humiliated, Clara returned home in tears, fearing her husband's anger. But when he saw her swollen eyes, he said nothing. The next morning, he sighed and said, "You don't know how to sell pots. We need another way to survive. I've heard that Robert McAllister is generous. Maybe I can find work in his household. If you work in the kitchen, I'll find another job and save money. When I have enough, I'll start my own business and bring you home." Clara flinched at the name. Once Robert had asked for her hand in marriage. Had she accepted, she would have been a lady of the house. Now she was begging for a job in his kitchen, but she had no choice. She was hired, and the drifter left to find work elsewhere. Over time, Clara changed. Gone was the spoiled heiress. She became humble, hardworking, and well-liked by the other servants. Then came Founder's Day, the biggest celebration of the year. Robert McAllister personally rewarded his workers. Clara, like the other maids, stood before him. When her name was called, she bowed her head respectfully. McAllister looked at her and said, "Clara, I'm proud of you. I once wanted to marry you." Clara gasped, "Sir, that would be wrong. I already have a husband. He may be a drifter, but he is still my husband." McAllister smiled. "Then I suppose it's time for you to see him." Moments later, the doors opened, and there stood her husband, not in rags, but in fine clothes. The drifter she had married was Robert McAllister himself. He smiled and said, "Clara, look closely. Don't you see the resemblance?" The truth was revealed. McAllister had disguised himself as a drifter to teach her humility. Clara fell to her knees, overcome with emotion. "Forgive me," she whispered. McAllister helped her up, saying, "There was no other way to change your heart. Now come home with me, not as a servant, but as my wife." Moral of the story: pride blinds us, but hardship teaches wisdom. True love is built on humility, respect, and kindness.